Hey, I'm Nathan Tabor. So the fourth step is implementation. This is literally where the rubber hits the road. This is where you're going to have to decide you've admitted what your problem or problems are. You've identified what's causing the issues. You've gotten to the root cause. You've established a plan, what you're going to do, how you're going to address it. Now, this is the part where you take that plan and actually start doing it. It's the old thought of knowing versus applying. You know not to go play in the street, and you apply that wisdom and knowledge to your life, right? Or hopefully. So look at the word implement. The definition is to begin to do or use something such as a plan to make something active or effective. So that's what we want to do in your life. That's what I've done in my life. So do you know anything about, cars and gas? For another illustration here, if you're driving down the road and you see that little needle is going towards the E, going towards empty, and you continue to drive your car, what's eventually going to happen? You're going to run out of gas. So what we know in our everyday lives is if you're driving that car and as soon as it starts to get to E, you need to find a gas station and put gas in your car. This is the same of what you're going to be doing here. What you've been doing is not getting you the results you want in your life. It's not getting you to where you want to go. So now you're going to have to start doing things the right way. Go back to the law of order that we talked about originally in this, and this is how things are done. If you do things the right way, you normally, most likely, get the results you desire. If you do things the wrong way, you might get the result you want for a time period, but eventually it's not going to hold. So this is the step that really trips people up, because this is where you really start to deal with things on an outward side. Everything so far has been inward. Maybe you've talked to a few people. You've asked them their perception of you, or things maybe you've done to them or said to them, and you've talked through some things. But now this is going to be taking it kind of to the next level, because now you're really going to start actively with everyone trying to change. Now, it can't be a fake change. If you do this just because you think you're going to be able to fool people, you might for a time period, but you can't sustain that. So this has to be in the heart. This has to be in the mind. Think about this too. Where you are right now, the way things have been going, is that the life you want to continue with? Are you happy with where you are? Are you content? Or do you want to get to where you want to go? You want this different life or different outcomes in your life. Well, this will help you get there. So effective implementation, and we talked about what implementation is to implement, to do it. It requires daily application. It might be moment by moment, second by second, minute by minute. Some days are going to be easier than others. Some days are going to be 10 times harder than others. And it's just going to require you to go back to what you've written down, what you know, and what you know is the best for your life. All of your actions, all of your thoughts, all of your words, everything that you do from this point forward should try to be to avoid, to stay away from, to not engage with the old type of behavior or the old type of actions or words or whatever it may be that got you in the situation you're currently in. Now, some things are outside of your control. You can't control if somebody comes in and starts yelling and screaming at you. What can you control? What can you, Y-O-U, control? You can control how you respond. You can control if you respond at all. So this has got to be your thought. And you're going to mess up. You're going to make mistakes. I still make mistakes. I still say things at times because it gets my flesh, my human side of me gets the best of me. But I go back and explain and apologize and try to do better the next time. So don't forget you're going to make mistakes, but then be consistent in apologizing or trying to make those mistakes right. And as you start to do this, you'll start to catch yourself. When you go, and right before you say something, that little thought in your mind will click. Hey, I need to control my tongue here. I need to control my temper. Or I need to take a 5-minute break. I need to walk out. Excuse me for just a minute. I'll be back in just a moment. I need to gather my thoughts in a nice way, leave, and come back. If not, you'll revert to your old behaviors. You'll revert to the old way of doing things, and then you set yourself back. 1 step forward and 2 steps back, you'll never get forward. But if you're taking 2 or 3 steps forward and you take a step back, and then 2 or 3 steps forward and a step back, you will eventually get to where you're going, and you eventually stop making those little mistakes as often. So when these old behaviors creep in, when the old actions creep in, take immediate steps to correct them. One of the things I did in my own life is when I would say something that I shouldn't, or I would act a way I shouldn't, I would immediately and essentially embarrass myself. I would stop and say, what I just did or what I just said was wrong, and I'm sorry. And I said, it might not sound like I actually mean it, but I do. I shouldn't have talked to you that way. And the more times I did that, the thought of having to do it overrode the thought of, well, I should say what is on my mind. So these shortcomings, these little mistakes or big mistakes that you're going to make is natural. It's going to happen. But how you respond immediately after that will determine what path you stay on. So even though at those times when you make those mistakes, it may feel like you're failing at that moment. It may feel like, oh my gosh, I've lost this progress. I'm on the wrong path. Be encouraged. Be literally encouraged when that thought starts happening. Do you know why? Think about it from this way. And this is why it should encourage you. A few weeks ago, a few months ago, a few years ago, when you did something you shouldn't have, and you walked away, and you patted yourself on the back and said, won that argument. Did you? I walked away from quite a few arguments thinking, won that argument. Yes, I won, but I lost my testimony. I might have lost a friend. I might have hurt someone's feelings. I didn't actually win. I won, but I didn't. And so if you catch yourself where when you've had that same discussion, that same argument, that same conflict of asking yourself, wow, maybe I shouldn't have said that way. Maybe I was right, but I was wrong in the way I did it. Be encouraged in that. That means you're moving in the right direction. So really focus in on those. And do it this way. Every morning you wake up, quickly review your list. Obviously the things that, it's kind of like studying for the test, the things that you have the hardest time with, spend the most time on. The things that you're getting better at or you don't struggle with very much, just quickly review over those. But look at those in the morning. Look at them at lunch. Look at them at dinner time. If you know you're going into a meeting or into a situation where you're struggling with, create a little note card, put it in your pocket. Remind yourself of the 3 things you need to do. If you watch sports, it's like looking at the plays, memorizing the plays. Memorize how you're going to respond to people. And then throughout the day, just commit to yourself. This is a process. These are habits I want to form. And it won't take long before you start to really form those. It's a conscious effort. It's a choice. You can either stay the way you are, or you can choose to be a better person, to have more control in your life, and to get to the place that you want to go. So be diligent. Be determined. Be everything you need to be in this situation to get to where you want to go. So now it's time to put your action plan to work. You've written down your plan. You've gone through it. You've edited it. You've written down your pros and cons. You've spent all that time on doing the initial work. And each one of these steps have their hardness about them, right? Admitting that you're wrong or you got problems, that's hard. Identifying the root problem, that's hard. Putting a plan together and being honest with yourself, that's hard. Implementing this is hard. But I tell you this, and I've said it several times, I guarantee if you do this process, you're going to get to the point. You're going to get to the life, and there's going to be hills to climb. There's still going to be valleys to go through. There's going to be mistakes you make. But in overall, you can get to where you desire to be. So you've gone through all this process. So don't stop now. Get asked this question quite a bit, so I want to address it. Where do you start? Nathan, where do I start in this process? I've got 12 problems. You start where you think you need to start. I would look at it and say start with some of the hardest problems, one or two of those, and one or two of the easiest. Something that you can get a victory out of pretty quick. Something that's not hard to address, but something that you need to do. Some of the things that are built on relationships, hurt feelings, work-life balance, some of those are going to take a little bit longer to come to grips with and to work on because there's other people involved. So, or you might need to address one issue at a time. You might be able to address all your issues at a time. Unfortunately, I can't answer that question for you specifically, but you're going to have to answer it for yourself. So, if you're trying to decide, get out a sheet of paper and rank your problems, one being the toughest, down, and then decide what is most important to work on. What do you need to focus on the most? And that's where I would start. The encouraging news is really twofold in this. First, once you start this implementation process and you start to change one part of your life or certain parts of your life, you're going to start to see the benefits of that. You're going to start to see the fruits of your labor. The second encouraging part, as you do this, as you start to change, as you start to implement, as you learn how you process things and how it's best for you to do, other areas become easier. The process of doing it becomes easier. Why? Because you know the process. You think about anything in your life, the first time you ever went out with someone, the first time you ever, did your job, the first time you ever went to school, any of those, the first time's always the hardest because you don't know the process. But once you understand the process, it becomes a lot easier. Same thing applies here. So just remember, if you need another written plan, if you need to print out some more copies, you can go over to nathantabor.com/law-of-order. If you need to go back in the videos and look at some of them, or you want to skip to the next step, you can go to nathantabor.com/law-of-order. And just let me encourage you. Let me, just from the bottom of my heart type, conversation. This is not an easy process. If it were easy, everyone would do it. It's not a complicated process, though. It's not rocket science. It is really just common sense. It's the things we probably already know we should be doing, or the things internally down deep that we know we should be doing. But, either procrastination or hurt feelings or pride or patience or bitterness, something standing in between you, me, and where we want to be. It could be fear even. Start addressing those things. Time is going to pass. And I'll close with this. Don't fear failure. This is one of these famous quotes, and I've amended it a little bit. Don't fear failure. Fear being in the exact same spot you are today a year from now. Because if you're in the same spot as you are today a year from now, what does that do for you? What if you could spend the next year working on you, working on those around you, and you are halfway to where you want to be? Maybe you're fully there. What if you're 20% there? Isn't it better than where you are today? So that's my challenge. Do you want to be where you are today, or do you want to be where you are trying to get to, or closer to where you want to get to? I hope you will really work on this. I hope you will take this to heart. And again, if I can answer any questions or help you with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.